All right, ladies and gentlemen, level 4. Right. Remember where we stopped yesterday. Today, today I said I'm going to talk on this slide, which is deviation from project plan. Right. I've explained to you what is a project plan. You know what a project plan is? A project plan is a very fundamental document as far as the execution of a project is concerned. Just like you have something like a business plan. You know what is a business plan? It's a briefcase for the project. A project plan details out all that needs to be done in the project, includes the budget, includes the stakeholders, includes the scope of the project, includes the specifications, right? Everything that pertains to that project is put together as a package to formulate a project plan. Right. So, what I really want to emphasize to you this morning is this. When you prepare your project plan, remember it's what you intend to do when you start implementing the project. So, it's a kind of futuristic in the sense that you haven't actually started doing the project. Right. So, there are some instances whereby when you start doing the project now, you discover that it's not exactly what you planned before that is going to turn out to be. Do you understand what I mean? But taking acknowledging the fact that when you are doing your project plan, you must strive to be as accurate as you can be. Right. Remember, we are not God. It's only God that said this is what is going to happen, and obviously it's going to happen exactly the same way that God have planned it. We are all human, right? When you plan your project, there are certain contextual factors that can militate against the success of your project. Of course, you have what we call contingency plan. We always have a contingency plan. When you are making a project plan, you always make provision for a contingency plan. In case something happens, how am I going to, what route or recourse am I going to take? Right. Irrespective of that, there are certain situations whereby what exactly you plan out might not be exactly what is going to be in reality. So that is where this concept of deviation from a project plan comes in. Deviating from what you plan to do, moving away from what you plan to do. There are certain factors that can occasion that. Right, we are going to discuss that. But for the time being, I want you to be able to, I want you to comprehend in short what deviation from project plan means. This is the plan you've made, right? Now, during the implementation stage, you discover that there are some factors that can make you to deviate from the project plan. So, what are the things that can make you to deviate from a project plan? Now, you know what is a deviation? Moving away from normal course. Do you understand it? That is what deviation means, right? For example, I said, let me say I want to go to Cape Town. There are so many routes that I can take to Cape Town, West Coast Road or N7, whatever. All right. Now, I've planned to take West Coast Road. Right. By the time I got to Melbourne, I discovered that there's an accident on the road is blocked. Right? Of which I have to go back now to connect N7 before going to Cape Town. You see, it's going to take a much longer time. That is a deviation from my normal route. Does it make sense to you? Right. That is a typical literary example. It's different from okay. What we are saying now is you need to make sure the most important thing is this. Deviation is not something, it's unavoidable. Let me put it that way. Deviation is unavoidable as far as project management is concerned. But the question is, or the most important thing you need to focus on, is how to manage deviations, right? Because if you don't manage deviations properly, it might end up in a situation whereby the the objectives of your project will not be realized as pre-planned or as predetermined. It might even result to a situation whereby you need to have to look for extra money to execute your project. It might lead the project to be more than or to extend beyond the project schedule. Right. So all those factors needs to be monitored. Otherwise, it will make your project to be much more escalated than the original budget. Do you understand what I mean? Because time is money. You need to manage it properly. Okay. So what could result or what could prompt a deviation in a project plan? For example, late deliveries. Deliveries are late. Obviously, it's going to affect your schedule. You understand what I mean? I need to start excavation tomorrow. I need an excavator. And the excavator is not on site today. It means that I cannot start tomorrow. Do you understand what I mean? So what is going to happen? I need to push it forward. So pushing it forward is affecting the schedule. So that can affect a duration from, yeah, it can constitute a kind of a deviation. Then circumstances change. Things can change, right? When circumstances do change, it's going to amount to a deviation. You have to look for a different means of satisfying your project or meeting with your project objective, which might not be the same exactly what you plan for. So it can as well constitute a kind of deviation. Then cost increase or decrease. When the cost of materials, it could be not only the cost of materials, maybe the cost of labor, things are increasing. You know, obviously it's going to be different from what you plan. For example, if the cost of materials are increasing, what is going to happen? Right. That means it's going to affect your budget. Do you understand what I mean? What if you don't have the money, you don't have extra money to meet up with, to augment the budget? Then it will make you, or rather, it will oblige you to start looking for save costing devices where you need to save in order for you to be able to complete the project, which could jeopardize or could compromise the quality of the other parts element of the project. That is what we are trying to say here. Then machinery or equipment breakdown. In a situation whereby you don't have a good working machinery, if you are using the equipment to do your job, if it breaks down along the line during the time of you executing a particular task, it will take you time to go and fix that machine, right? Time and tide wait for no man. You know what we mean by that? Have you seen the wave? The wave in the sea. Does it wait for anybody? It doesn't wait for anybody. Just like I did this morning now. I don't have to be waiting for you, right? If it is only one person, I start teaching. Because I told my students this morning that I'm here to earn my money, not to steal it. If it is only one person, I'm going to teach. Even if it's only the desk, I will set up my gadget here and start talking. Right. Of course, I'm recording it. This is my evidence that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to earn my money. Right. Okay. So what we are saying is time doesn't wait for anybody. If along the line while executing your project you got a breakdown, obviously it's going to affect your project. Right? That one on its own can constitute a deviation in the time because obviously you will not be able to complete the same task as at when required as per your schedule. Now you must have to be looking for how to complete that on time, either by increasing more or putting in more resources for you to complete it on time, or making people to work overtime, of which That on its own, it got a cost implication. You need to pay for it. So this kind of stuff can constitute what we call a deviation. Right. Then deliveries of supplies and equipment are not up to standard. Deliveries of supplies and equipment are not up to standard. Remember, when things are substandard or when things are not up to standard, it got its own implication, right? In the first place, is go to neutralize or compromise the standard of the project, the outcome of the project. Do you understand what I mean? So what it means on its own is a complete deviation because you have made your project plan based on standard. You've already set a benchmark, a kind of a standard. This is how my project is going to be, right? Whatever that you are going to use in the project or whatever inputs that are going to be inputted in the project must conform to that standard. Right. So any attempt or attempted attempt, if you will, for you to deviate from the standard is gonna compromise the project, which can result to a kind of a deviation check. Does it make sense to you? Right. Then task takes longer to complete than anticipated. Task takes longer to complete than anticipated. Who can explain that for me? Yeah. Are you just reading what is on the slide or you? I want you to put it in kind of into application. What I mean by that, if it is possible for you to give an example, then I will appreciate it much more better. Then it tells me that you are understanding what I'm saying. Sorry? Hmm. This one. Task takes longer to complete than anticipated. What do we mean by the concept anticipated? Yeah, right. So, for example, let me help you. Anyway, you tried is good, right? I like your attempt. All right. So, when work is taking more time than scheduled, than you expected it to be, it constitutes a kind of a deviation. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah. You expected, for example, a particular task to take 1 week, right? So by the hello, focus, please, man. You're coming late. You still have the audacity to be disturbing my class. Please, not allowed, right? So a task perhaps that is scheduled to take 1 week, 5 days. Let's put it 5 days, right? By day four, or let me say by day three, you're supposed to complete maybe perhaps 60% of it, right? So if by day three you are still on 20%, something is wrong there, right? Obviously, you will not be able to complete that task within that 5 days. So it can constitute a kind of a deviation. You are deviating now from your standard, from your schedule. Your schedule say 5 days, and that 5 days you are not completing your task. You understand what I mean? So those are the things that we are talking about. But there are a lot of factors that you can consider. Yeah, yeah, because you come in late, because you came late. That was where I started. Yeah. So that's it. I'm happy that it's able to tell you. That is what we mean by deviation. When you change from your original plan, you don't stick with your original plan. It means you are deviating. Do you understand? The project plan, what is it all about? It's to guide you, like a guiding angel, if you like. Do you understand? It's like a business plan. It details out what needs to be done in the project. And you are expected to adhere scrupulously to your project plan. You know what I mean by scrupulous? You make sure that you adhere to it strictly, right? But what we are talking here now is this today, that there are instances whereby it becomes difficult for you to stick to exactly what is in the project plan. Do you understand? So you need to make way to make some changes. And you need to make sure that when you are making those changes or while making those changes, it must be in a reasonable way. That is why we need to we always introduce in a project what we call change control, right? Change control mechanism. The mechanism that you need to effect for you to be able to effect changes in the project. Because if you don't manage the deviations, it might end up vitiating. Vitiate means neutralizing the project objectives. You will completely deviate yourself from the project objectives, and your project objectives could be compromised, right? That is why you need to make sure that you control whatever changes, right, coming out as a result of deviation in the project. Does it make sense to you? Right. So there are certain other things that can make deviation to happen. For example, if the project manager or rather the one that estimated, that prepared the project plan is incompetent or inexperienced, obviously it will result to a lot of deviations in the project. Do you understand what I mean? For example, you've given a project to someone that doesn't have much experience, right? That person doesn't even know much in terms of the task and activities that needs to be done. So in estimating, that person can say, okay, it's going to take 5 days, but in reality, it's going to take more than 5 days. It should take more than 5 days. So inexperience can result to that as well. Do you understand? There are certain contextual factors that can occasion the deviations in a project, contextual factors that are beyond the control of the planner, if you like, or the project manager. You understand? For example, if there is inflation, if the economy of the country is not good and there is an inflation, that one on this can constitute a variation. The prices of things are going up, right? Of which is beyond the control of the project manager. So if you want that project to be completed, you need to look for an alternative. You understand what I mean? By mere looking for an alternative on its own is a deviation because that is not what you plan for. You understand what I mean? For example, there could be changes in the requirement, the sponsor, which could come either from the sponsors or the beneficiary. They will say, no, I don't want this again. Replace it with another stuff. It's a kind of deviation. So those things need to be managed properly whilst executing or implementing your project, if I may borrow your concept, right? Are you cool? Are you with me? Right. This thing is very important because it can come out in your exam. Not this exam per se, any other exam, you know, even in external exam, deviation. All right. Tools used to manage project scope. You know what is a project scope? A project scope. Project scope contains the inclusions and the exclusions. Right? If I may unpack it further, it contains what needs to be done in a project. Right? And perhaps what the things that might look implied but are not going to be done in the project. I gave you an example of inclusions and the exclusions. So when you are formulating the project scope, you must formulate it within that confinement of inclusions and exclusions. These are what I'm going to do. These ones, you may think that I'm going to do it, I'm not going to include this one. It makes it much more clearer without any sort of ambiguity. Does it make sense to you? This is exactly what I'm going to do. This one, you may think that I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do it. It's not part of the project. It makes things much more clearer. Don't you think so? Right. So project scope includes or contains the inclusions and the exclusions of the project. So in executing your project, or if you will, in implementing your project, you need to make sure that you stick to your project plan. It's very, very important as per the scope of the project. Right. So these are the tools that you can use to manage the project scope. The project charter, which contains the document, then the change request register. The change request register. Okay, let's try to conceptualize what a project charter means. It's a document which formally recognizes and authorizes a project. Right. When before you start a project, right? I said you need to put together your project plan. Right. Then this project charter is a form of a project plan that has been authorized. It has been endorsed, ratified. This is the form document of the project. That is what we call a project charter. A project charter is a document which formally, sorry to say, recognizes and authorizes a project. So these are the components, the terms of reference, project mission, the proposal, whatever. Then you have, we are still talking about it. I said, like I explained, it authorized a project. Then it got the project scope statement, which state work to be done and the deliverables. I've explained to you. Then the project plan that we talk about. Then, okay, so you can use that one to monitor, right? Like we said, you can use it as a tool to manage the project. Now, another important document that we need to talk about is scope is a change request, right? Change request form. Change request. How does this comes in? How does it play? Remember, we said in most cases there are always deviations in the project. So I said you must be able to manage those deviations properly so that it's not going to adversely affect the objective of the project or the outcome of the project. So there is a form we call a change request form. So whenever you decide, for example, if you are a team member in a project and you discover that there needs to be a kind of a change, right? Change from or a deviation from what was originally planned for. There is a form, it's a kind of a template that you need to complete, right? You complete that template, then you send it to the project manager. So the project manager needs to do the evaluation in terms of the cost and benefit analysis, things that needs to be removed and things that needs to be replaced with it, and they will try to work it out. Right. Then they will send it to the sponsor. So it's when the sponsor have endorsed it before you implement it. So let's say change request submitted, change request formalized and logged. Then the project manager decide if investigation is required. So investigation take place and recommendation made. Then one has to decide on whose authority to. Okay. So these are the a kind of mechanism that needs to be instituted to make sure that change control are not proliferated. What I mean by proliferation, I'm talking in terms of not anyone, authorizing the change control. Okay, let me give you a literary example. For example, if we are all part of a project, right? You've been assigned roles and responsibility. In executing your responsibility, you discover that maybe perhaps due to your incompetency, you don't know what to do. Now you are looking for a shortcut, looking for a way to save your face. Then you change the course, right? If everybody can be doing that, at the end of the day, what is going to happen to the project, the outcome of the project? Right? It's going to be different because each and every one of you, you are doing things on your own way, which is not the right. So there must be a control mechanism. Whenever you want to make a change, there must be a form for you to complete. Somebody must authorize that change before you effect it. That is what we are talking about here. Does it make sense to you? Right. So This is how it looks like, the change control form. Guys, this one is very, very important. It can come out in your exam. They will give you a template of a change control form. They will ask you to complete it. Sometimes you might not be given a template, right? They will ask you to produce a change request form, a completed change request form of a project. So you need to know this thing very well, how to formulate it and how to complete it if you are given a template to complete. Right. Request title. Request title. What needs to be changed? What you've identified to be changed, you put the title there, right? It's a template, it's a kind of a form. Then originator's name, right? It is you, Robin, that is requesting that. You must put your name there so that we know it's Robin that is suggesting this. Does it make sense to you? Right. Or Vivian, or Castu, or who else again? I know the ones that haven't mentioned their name now, they are jealous. Right, right. Don't worry. Yeah? Okay. Okay. All right. But you understand what I'm talking about? Right. For example, if I'm the project manager, right? If there's any change form, that is change request form, let's put it that way, that is coming forth on my table, I should be able to know where is this one coming from. It's from Robin. Robin is the head of which unit. Do you understand what I mean? Right. That is what we are talking about. It shouldn't be anonymous. You know, anonymous, no name, right? Because if something is anonymous, who are you going to hold responsible, accountable for it? No one, right? So the originator's contact details must be there, right? Then description of the proposed change. You must describe the change that you want us to effect in the project. You must describe it. Does it make sense to you? You must describe it so that we know what you are talking about. And in describing it, you must use a hello, focus. Okay, focus. In describing it, you must use a language that is clear. Don't use a big grammar. Or you write it in a way that people will not understand. Right? Then reason for the change and possible benefit. You must incorporate the reason why you want that thing to be changed and the benefit, the possible benefit that we are going to derive from it. Hello. Because in most cases, we don't want to do something, you don't want to change something in a project that is going to be detrimental to the outcome of the project in an overall form. Do you understand what I mean by that language? We always tends to, or we always seek to optimize benefit. You want us to change this aspect of the project, this task, then you should be able to motivate. Why? And what type of benefits are we going to derive from it? Is this something that is going to help the project in the overall sense of it? You need to motivate. Does it make sense to you? Right. Then you need to, the urgency of the change. If it is something that is urgent, that if we don't do it, we're gonna get stuck, or the project gonna get stuck in that aspect or in that context, you need to motivate. Say this thing is very urgent. We need to act on it as quick as possible. Right? So it's a kind of a template, then you need to complete it. It's in your book, right? Change request form. It's in your book. You can be able to get a copy of it. So step to follow to develop scope management system. Step one, develop a change control system, right? That outlines steps to follow. Make list of all people who have the authority to change. You see, for you to be able to manage the scope very well, not everybody can. For example, if it is a big project, right? Obviously, only project manager cannot be able to authorize, right? Because if it's a big project, a complex project, you need to delegate authorities and responsibility to people, right? You know what we mean by delegation? To delegate. Delegate means to assign responsibilities, right? To delegate. So what it means is the authority for signing off change control form in a big project needs to be delegated, right, to other people. So you make list of people who have the authority to make change, right? You develop M&E. M&M means monitoring and evaluation, right? You need to be able to observe what is happening and evaluate the efficacy of the system in place. Then you make sure system of automatic approval is in place for emergency. Guys, this thing is very important. Listen, focus. You are laughing. You must focus, my dear, right? This thing is very important. Oh, this is. Oh, I don't encourage multitasking here now. You focus, right? Okay. Guys, you need to make sure that there is a system. You see, let me tell you something. Let me explain this thing to you. Unpack this thing clearly for you to understand. The system of approving, right? Change control in a project is very bureaucratic. It's very bureaucratic. What do I mean by being bureaucratic? It has to follow series of step procedures before it can be approved, right? You, as a team member, perhaps you need, if it's you that is requesting for the change, you need to complete the form. You need to start explaining a lot of stuff, the benefit, why you need that change to be effected. Then you need to pass the form to the project manager, perhaps to endorse it. That is a bureaucratic system, right? You know the disadvantage of being bureaucratic, time consuming. It consumes a lot of time, right? But that kind of process doesn't actually favor things that are under emergency situations. So, for you to be able to avoid such bureaucratic nature, you must institute in place a kind of automatic approval for cases that are of emergency nature. Does it make sense to you? Right. Then you keep record of approved changes. Whatever changes that have been effected, you need to have a record. You understand what I mean? For example, let's say at the end of project, the project budget is getting escalated. Then they ask, why? You know, this was how much was set aside. Why is the project cost now being more than what it was supposed to be? Then you can come and say, because there were some changes along the way, right? Then they want you to substantiate. How will you substantiate? You bring out the record. Does it make sense to you? Or perhaps they can say, why are the deliverables different from what we predetermined before? You can say along the way there were some changes, right? Then you substantiate, you give them the proof. Does it make sense to you? That is why you need to keep record of all approved changes. Asenzi, Injalo, right? Any question? Any question? Because this is where we're gonna stop. This is the end of topic 2 in short, right? So the next topic is topic 3, which is schedule, right? Pose questions. Bombard me with questions. Throw your missiles of questions to me. I've got uh, I've got an iron dome, iron dome to intercept missiles. Throw your missiles. Yeah. That is the latest concept these days. Missiles with the iron dome to intercept missiles. That is what is happening. Huh? Ask this? From the yeah, you shoot it down. You see? Israel have got the best iron dome in the world. You see? Covering their area there. Any missile that is coming, they shoot it down. The best in the world. even more than the Americans, right? Huh? The war. Yeah, but you must follow the trend. You must know what is happening in the world. I like to follow it. I like to see, update myself in terms of what is happening in the world. That is the latest, right? It's the latest. What can we do? The world is, that side is burning. It's not the way things are here. We are living in peace. Those people are not living in peace. Every now and then they hear siren, they must go down the bunker. Schools are closed there. They're not going to school. They are doing online. That is why we said we must try to introduce online system into South African education to enhance our teaching and learning. They are at home, they are learning. You see, siren every time. Wow, 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 wow. Missiles are coming. But it's like they are used to that type of life. They used to it. For example, those people in Israel, they used to that type of life. Yeah, they are used to it. You see? So that is the thing. Guys, I've already briefed you in terms of what you're gonna do, right? What you're gonna write in the exam. It's easy. We talked about that, right? I was, I think, how many minutes remaining? Two. I want to call the register. Good news, I've got electronic register. Hey, ne? The big milestone. You can say that again. The British like to use that language. You can say that again. Okay, so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me call the register, right? But when you see the register, don't raise your voice because we are still working on it. If you see your name there is 5% or 0%, don't say, sir, I'm becoming. We need to fix it together, right? Okay. So that is the thing. I can think we can put that one off record. Okay. So here it is. Payment, the register. Where is it? Let me put it here so that you see what I'm doing. So that you can see what I'm doing, right? Well, is this the register or what? Okay, this is the register. Right. Ask us. I'm using what? Okay, let's do like this. I need to log in again. I don't know whether it's gonna work now. It's today 20. So this thing updated quickly by itself. Today is 20. Level 4, right? You don't have a group. Okay, let's see. Oh man, here is it. Oh, my, don't worry about 100. You have, where you going? You're, what are you saying? What did I tell you before? Huh? Let me switch off this stuff because